I don't know, like whenever I copy and paste things that are from a website, it gives me like ads. I'm like, I'm not trying to copy the ads, man.
Yeah. Oh, do you know you can do a thing on Word where when you, instead of doing Control V, you can go to, when you go to paste, you can select, see how it says paste options? You can select.
Yeah, I've done that before, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do that in this though. Let me see. Oh, I would have to go through here. That's why. That's why I don't do it, because it has an extra step.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just didn't know if you knew about it.
In Word, it does that. I've done that, but in this, I have to click the arrow.
Oh, that's fuck that.
Not doing that.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. You fucking should have known.
My bad.
Louisa Muscovitz appeared to be having a panic attack. It was March of 2016, and Louisa, a 33-year-old with a history of tragedy, was having a regular weekly session with her psychotherapist in Tacoma, Washington. Louisa had recently separated from her husband, Stephen, and when her counselor asked about her marriage, she said she wasn't ready to talk about it. The counselor kept pressing, and again, Louisa demurred. Eventually, the conversation grew tense, and Louisa started to hyperventilate. The counselor rushed down to the hall to get Louisa's other therapist, Amy Harp. Together, they moved Louisa to Harp's office, where they felt they could better calm her. But once Louisa was there, Harp recalls, her demeanor transformed. Normally, she was friendly and open, and now she started screaming and pulling out clumps of her hair. She growled and glared. Her head flailed from side to side, cocking back at odd angles. In jumbled bursts, she muttered about good and of evil, of God and the devil. She told the counselors that no one there could save Louisa. Welcome again to the DJBP, also known as, amongst others and the rest of the podcast community, the world, our friends and family, our pets, and
our guardian angels.
Guardian angels. What's it also called, Joe?
The Dylan and Joe Basement Podcast. Basement with a B. I'm Joe.
And I'm Dylan. We're your hosts today. For those of you who don't, you're new to the podcast. Welcome. This is a podcast where we usually talk about things like paranormal, vampires, aliens, strange occurrences. We have done dogs. We have done
D.B. Cooper.
One
of our earlier ones.
Yep, mysteries.
Madame de
Voyage. Monoliths 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of. 1 time, then like a half a time.
And there'll be more.
And all
just
things
generally unexplained and interesting, I think.
Generally the things that are left to be known in this world that are less understood, and we're trying to help you understand them, if you can understand that sentence.
Yeah. And we're trying to understand ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're trying to understand those things ourselves, too.
Yeah. And this week's topic has brought us to something we obviously have touched upon multiple times in multiple episodes.
That's right. It's the beginning of the Halloween season. We got you earlier with the vampires, but it's officially Halloween time, where you have 4 episodes in a row to take you straight through to the unholiest of holidays, All Hallows Eve.
All Souls Day, or whatever else we call it.
Oh, yeah.
Halloween. It's only October 7th, and we've got 3 more of these bad boys to send out for you guys before we wrap up.
Blast all over your ears and your eyes if you're watching online.
And your face.
All over you.
All over it.
And there's going to be dripping content all over your neck and into your chest. You might need to clean it up, but you don't have to. And that's what we're here to tell you. Be yourself, listen up, soak in what you want to, and let go of what you don't. As we dive into our spookiest of seasons, what are we talking about today for our first spooky episode here, Dylan?
Today, our first spookiest episode, we're talking about demonic possessions and spiritual possessions and exorcisms. We haven't decided what to call it yet, but all of that.
Death to depart from the servant of God. It's the power. It's the power of Christ that compels you. The power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you.
Being taken over by an outside spirit. Losing
is
control of the most sacred temple of your own body
Yeah, and mind,
and mind.
but mostly body.
Terrifying.
The mind thing gets like, it's like a surrogate sort of situation. It's not so that they lose their mind; it's still there. It comes back, leaves,
Like
comes
a
back.
backseat driver kind of deal where
Yeah.
you're losing control of the vehicle, but you're still there.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. Or part of you is still there.
Yep.
And part of you is being swallowed up by these
Yeah.
these entities from beyond.
Oppressed or completely taken over by these things, which brought us to our friend Louisa.
That's Louisa.
And we said Seattle. She's in Seattle, Washington.
Tacoma, I believe.
Tacoma, Washington. There's a lot of stuff going on in Tacoma.
I
I got
mean-
a friend who's a cop there, and he's like, "There's some
Washington
shit
is
going
not
down."
just Seattle.
Yeah.
For what I understand, Seattle is the least Washington part of Washington State. The rest of the state is like Bigfoots and countryside and serial killers and just a beautiful American landscape.
Yeah, exactly.
Old growth forest, that they didn't cut down during the initial wave of colonists that took this nation over. But we're going to get into it today. We're going to start the way we always start, which is going into the past and bringing up Egypt, which is how we start every subject, no matter what it is.
Dogs, you name it, Egypt.
It's right.
Nikola Tesla, Egypt.
Tesla. Obviously, you got his ideas from Egypt. It all starts in Egypt. Oh yeah, we don't mean to do it,
Space, Egypt.
but space colonization, Egypt. Obviously.
Always Egypt. So, Joe.
DB Cooper, Egypt.
DG Cooper,
Antarctica, Egypt.
Egypt, yeah.
Works every time.
Yeah, I've yet to find one reason why we shouldn't go to Egypt. Alistair Crowley, Egypt.
Egypt. It doesn't matter what.
always
Any
Egypt.
topic, we have yet to come up with the one that doesn't come up with Egypt first. Basically this idea of spiritual possession, being possessed by an entity or a spirit outside of yourself. It enters into your body and controls you. There's varying degrees of it, which we'll go over depending on what happens to each person. But basically, every major culture in the world has their own version of this, their own idea of being taken over by another spirit. It's not all necessarily evil and harmful to you. Sometimes it can enlighten you and make you learn things and make you see things transcend to the other side, being possessed or filled up by this spirit. But it comes from all over the world, and like I said before, different cultures have the different versions of it. There's gaining enlightenment in Buddhism. You're not possessed by a spirit of a dead person, but you're possessed by the spirit of enlightenment of the Buddha itself. You have things like Native American culture, where a lot of the tribes believe in spirit animals, or going on a spirit quest where you actually leave your body and the spirit comes into you and shows you things that you cannot learn in your
Through
earthly
ayahuasca
form.
or through something else.
Yeah, we gotta do drugs. But after that, you don't eat it all, and you wander off in the forest, and then the spirits come into you.
But we're not
and they
making
show
fun of that. We are.
No, it's cool.
We are very pro ayahuasca
yeah.
podcast. We believe in that.
Of course, yeah. I mean, whatever gets you there, and that's for everything. However you can get.
It's a really good Dylan Joe podcast. Whatever gets you there.
Yeah,
That's our Steve.
even in major popular religions like Islam, Christianity, Judaism, they believe in this idea. Oceanic cultures, so like people in the
Atlantis.
native of the Philippines, Atlantis.
Sorry.
No, yeah,
Sorry.
that too.
I was thinking of real ocean culture. But
real ocean culture.
that's okay. Fine. Philippines will work for now. That's fine.
Indonesia.
I meant the real ocean.
Yeah, and then even modern Wicca, which is one of the the religion's been around for a while, but in the modern form of it, they still believe that you can be possessed by a spirit, even if it comes from being a psychic medium and channeling these spirits to speak from within your body. That's possession, and not the way that we think of like the more evil, insidious version, but more of a version where you're becoming a conduit through these spirits to possess you and speak through you, which is still a type of possession.
It is.
It's not all one block. It's a varying swath of possession.
I must have read the email wrong because I went straight to just satanic possessions.
Oh, that's going to be the majority. I'm pretty much done talking about that.
Yeah, I didn't know if you want to talk about like very enlightening possessions at the moment.
Yeah, I just thought
I
I'd
wasn't
bring up...
thinking that the whole time. I went
For
just
sure.
straight to the
Yeah,
bottom.
demonic possession. Yeah, I mean, that would be the brunt of the podcast. I just thought it would be interesting to bring up that this isn't just...
Honestly,
possession isn't always this evil thing.
No. What's scarier? Meeting someone at a bar who's like, I am possessed by our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Please come out to my car and buy my book. And what's worse?
I don't know. It's pretty much a
Don't
toss-up
know.
at
They're
that
pretty
point.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah, one of them is probably a lot less likely to want to take you home with them. They kind of just do their own thing out in the woods, becoming the catalyst.
Yep.
As All It Rains would say.
Yeah, good band.
But yeah, we can dive right into that on over to the more intense type of possession, which is the possession you think about on times of the year like Halloween, the spookier season, and that possession comes from what we already said, which is demons, evil spirits that come from beyond the pale and in a different dimension other than our own. But different cultures kind of have different ideas of what demons are. Obviously, we have the culture we grew up in is primarily a Christian kind of Western European kind of culture to it. But a lot of different religions have different ideas of demons. Like the Egyptians, for example, they kind of thought them as guardians and wanderers. They weren't necessarily good or evil. They were like these guardians of the desert. When you come upon them, they'd have the classic demon thing. You have different parts of your body that are animal stuff. It's the classic way of thinking of a demon. So
Yeah.
they have like a face of a ram, and they'd have like the arms of snakes, and they'd be like, hey, there's an oasis over there. I've got some water for you. And you don't pray to them like you pray to a god, but they're like these spirits that can like guide you through.
Yeah.
Kind of more of like a benevolent force. It's not human. It's not really an animal. It's like somewhere in between that can kind of help you out there. As far as that goes. And Mesopotamia, so it's the same kind of area there. They thought of demons as like gods, kind of like Zeus and Hades. Like the demons are just the other gods that do things that aren't so helpful to you, or maybe they are helpful. I mean, a lot of the Greek gods weren't very helpful either. Like Poseidon could help your boat or could create a giant storm and kill you alive. Yeah. And one of the Mesopotamian gods we'll definitely bring up later because he's famous for being a part of one of the most famous possessions ever. And just to run through it, Hinduism and Zoroastrianism, they're more of like these half gods, brothers to gods. And Zoroastrianism is the first concept of demons as we would see it now. So that's an ancient Middle Eastern religion. And Christianity takes a lot of its ideas of demons from that because not only are they completely evil and they're only out to make you do bad things and hurt people, they actually would name their demons after other religions' gods, which we'll see in Christianity as it grows. They kind of take that thing from it. Where not only are they these evil spirits that can like scare against the world, they're all the gods of the other religions. So not only are your religion wrong, your religion is demons and you're a demon worshiper. And that's a good way to kind of alienate your tribe from other people and say that strengthen your own religion there. And that brings us to Christianity, which is the most famous one in our culture, which is the demons that come from hell or from the other side of the world that actually try to cause you to sin or do evil things upon
they're seeking vulnerabilities in the living
somehow
to get in and to wreak havoc. And there's a couple different places where they stem from. Obviously you find it in the Bible, but fallen angels, big part of it.
Those are the heavy hitters, right? It's the fallen angels are like the first demons. Like at some time in the Bible, they say like there was never demons. There was just angels and God. And their God's favorite angel, the light bearer, Lucifer, decided that he is too proud to be God's servant. He thought he should be able to make his own decisions. And a lot of the other angels thought that was pretty cool, and they could get down with that idea. But unfortunately, the God of the Bible, which people forget is the God in the Bible, he's pretty jealous. He didn't like that shit, so he goes, "That's not cool. We're gonna fucking kill you." And they cast them down into hell, and that's how they lost the fight against God and Saint Michael the Archangel. All those guys cast them down. So a lot of those angels, they went they went down to earth, and now they are fighting between God and us for the souls of humankind.
Yeah, and another thing could be, like if you aren't a Christian or a Catholic, and you die, your soul stays near your body and is always longing for something else, and therefore those souls are on the prowl, looking for again another way in.
Yeah.
type of thing. It's definitely a little bit of a scare tactic.
For sure. Yeah, and I thought it was interesting, like in the Bible, it doesn't say a whole lot about demons. It has the thing about the fallen angels and things like that, but a lot of the stories about demons and tales of what happens in hell or how they come from the other side are written in books hundreds and hundreds of years after that, even into the Renaissance period. A lot of the stories of things like Dante's Inferno, they
book.
were written in the teens of hundreds, which is so much longer after the initial Bible was written, but they kind of are taken as gospel, kind of, pun intended. And I thought it was interesting to see that there was 7 main princes of hell, which including the one that actually fell down from heaven itself. And some of these guys or gals that are demons are the ones that are claimed to be responsible for a lot of the possessions on Earth today. People who are possessed will claim that they speak for, that they in fact are possessed by one of these 7. And each of the 7, nice literary way, they each stand for one of the 7
sins.
7 deadly sins. Of course, Lucifer being pride, he thought he was better than God.
Yep.
We have Beelzebub for envy. Beelzebub was actually a god from another religion, Baal. They changed it to Beelzebub, just like, fuck that religion.
They changed it from Baal to balls?
To Beelzebub.
Beelzebub?
Yeah.
Okay.
And all these are kind of like
Makes sense.
like a synonym for Satan. I've heard it used as like Beelzebub. They call that Satan, but really it's like they're all supposed to be different.
Isn't that
demons.
funny? Like, do they say like, "Oh, we're gonna call him Beelzebub"? Like, that's kind of funny. Isn't
That's
it?
like Beelzeboy or Beetleborg or something.
Yeah,
like that.
right? Like,
doesn't really seem scary.
It doesn't. It's like, hey, Beelzebub's coming to get you. It's like, are you kidding me? Like,
Ooh, no.
yeah, oh, here we go. You know.
Not scary as like Lucifer.
Yeah. Lucifer generally just has a nice ring to it that makes it actually a little bit scarier.
Yeah.
Satan, same thing.
Beelzebub was there for envy. Sathanas, which is also pronounced Satan in other language, so Satan being separate from Lucifer in that version of the story. That's wrath. Abaddon, sloth. Mammon is for greed, and that's actually a word that comes from...
Mammary.
Exactly right. It comes from breast cancer, and that's why we have cancer. It's because of mammon.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's because they used to have a word for that in like ancient Hebrew, and that meant like the riches that you're trying to obtain, like just in order to be rich. Just getting what you want. No, that one's coming.
Putting boobs in your mouth like that is bad, and we're gonna name a sin after. We're gonna name a cardinal or whatever they're called, cardinal sins.
Yeah, cardinal. Oh, no, 7 deadly sins. We're cardinal sins.
Yeah, we're gonna name one of those after someone lusting for tits.
Exactly.
So that's bad. You see boobs, you should not see boobs.
No,
look up.
Those are not good. Look up, all the way up to God.
Yes.
In the
yes.
sky.
Every time you see a set of boobs you like, just look up.
Just pray about it.
Pray. Just pray.
Start praying. Close your eyes and start praying immediately.
Yeah, dear God, I just can't stop staring.
Sorry
at
about
these
the boobs.
They're unbelievable and amazing, and I shouldn't be looking.
I'm sorry
you.
that I looked
Amen.
at those things that you
I'm
built
sorry.
us to love so much.
Yes.
My bad. No, but it was the word for like when Jeff Bezos cuts his workers' health care so he can make an extra $10 billion. That's mammon, that like extra greed for the sake of being greed. And Belphegor, which is a great black metal band, that's for gluttony.
Nice.
He would make deals with people to try to make them get whatever they want. And then Asmodeus, which is the demon of lust.
Stuff you take when you have diarrhea?
Exactly right. Asmodeus AD.
PM.
Anno Domini.
Yeah. The PM version.
So yeah, those are the 7
It's Imodium.
heavy hit. Yeah. Imodium AD, right? Or there's Imodium PM too.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are like the heavy hitters. Where a lot of times, like when people like have tales of people being possessed, they say like, oh, this person was possessed by Belphegor, or like is possessed by Lucifer, is inside them, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's pretty interesting that they actually would like categorize them by that book that was written 400 years ago, and be like, yeah, this one's Asmodeus, obviously, because he keeps jacking off. He doesn't usually do that. He's usually a good boy, but he's possessed.
But we saw him do this one
He's
time.
possessed.
He's possessed by
Obviously.
that specific force of evil.
He would never do that unless he was a Imodium AD. That's obviously not his fault.
And then he spent his whole entire life in shame.
In shame and in shame.
Like in the show Salem, he's something the fornicator, because I think he got caught jerking off.
Oh.
And he was labeled out in the town with like a branded F on his forehead. Like,
God damn
he
it.
was the fornicator. And everyone's like, he's the fornicator.
You couldn't get away with anything back then.
Back then, you're fucked.
Anything you
Yeah,
did.
you just get caught jerking off one time in your own house with the lights off.
Yeah. It's so unfair.
You're ruined forever.
The whole town is branded you for life.
You're
You
chained
can't
to a
move.
pole in the front of the town.
That's just who you are.
Everyone
forever
sees you
now.
and goes, huh?
Yeah, meanwhile, everyone in the town's doing the exact same thing. They just
Yeah.
didn't get caught yet.
Yeah, it's
Fucking
so funny.
hypocrites, man.
Yeah, or they think it's a sin to touch their own self. They're like, I would never do that.
Yeah. Not only are you under the watchful
Okay.
eye of everyone in your town, you're also under the watchful eye of God every second of every day. Everything you think, He sees. So it's like living in a
Brutal.
like a sniper rifle scope your whole life. Just at any moment, you could be crucified for what you've done.
It's tough.
Is wrong, and I think that that's kind of fucked up, and people shouldn't have to live that way because that's not the natural order of the way we're built. I don't think, but
We don't
get
know.
into
Yeah,
it
we're getting into that.
for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, unless you want to talk any more about individual demons and stuff, we can get into
No. I just want to
yeah.
say that the common theme here so far that you've said is that this possession thing is tied to religion mostly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think almost definitely there's very few examples. As we talk about our examples today, we'll see there's very few examples of anybody being possessed that has no knowledge of religion, and not only that, isn't very religious.
Yes.
A lot of these people not only
They're
have full
super-
knowledge of
Great
religion,
point.
they're actually dedicated to it in a certain way. So we can see whether, as we go through it, we can make an opinion of whether or not that's actually a fault, like it makes you a target. Like the more religious you are, the more these demons want to hunt you down. Or perhaps that you would never think these things unless you were religious. So the very fact of knowing these things makes you believe you are this way.
Yeah, we'll get that to the end, but that's just
a little teaser,
Yeah, exactly. And then some of the strongest cultures. So one of the things that I read, you mentioned it, but one of the culture religion groups, I'm really not even sure what to call them besides just being highly spiritual folks,
Sure.
are the Native Americans, and they actually have the least reported amount of like spiritual possessions because they're rock solid and they believe mostly in rocks and like obviously well and nature and things around them and things they can see with their own eyes, like the stars and the planet, and then like the horse god is the bunch of stars that are shaped like horse, like
Sure.
So, but because they're a little more rational because they're set not in necessarily civilization and society in the same way that the rest of them are. They have their own, obviously, but not.
Yeah.
They're more nature based, so they have less of this like one person's spin their head around. It's just,
Right. Well, they're not as much in fear of the spiritual world as they are among it.
bingo. That's
A lot of
summarized so well.
Catholicism, for example, is like we are not worthy of the spiritual world, so other spirits are terrifying and they're here to kill you. But in a lot of Native American cultures, we live among them.
Yeah.
They're like your brothers and sisters, like your ancestors are among you. It's a good thing. It's not that like anything that could possess you is going to make you become a fornicator.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but I remember when we first started going to confession at church, first thing on your mind in 5th or 6th grade that you're going to tell the priest.
Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 6 months and 4 days since my last confession.
Yep. And all you can think about is the worst thing that you have done as a 6th grade boy.
Time to tell the priest.
Tell the priest that you have jerked off. And you say you're sorry and you feel terrible about it. And this was a big mistake. And they go, all right, well, you need to say 10 Hail Marys and 14 All Fathers because you're really bad.
Really
And
bad.
we go, Jesus.
Don't do it again, ever.
Don't ever do this again.
God forgives you, but
so to your
don't ever
point
do it.
of this is the type of place that makes you not worthy, feel bad, and be punished for everything, it would be Catholicism. It takes number one slot on the whole religion scale of you need to fear this.
Absolutely. And we might find that there goes a one-on-one, the two-handed punch of it there being you should fear it, and they feel like they're the Ghostbusters, as it were.
Yes.
You should be afraid of the ghosts, but don't worry, we're the Ghostbusters.
Yes.
So
Yep.
we'll bust it. And Busted Makes Me Feel Good, which is part of the Ghostbusters song. Hit the sting. And that makes me feel good, too. I can't wait to get into our stories of individual demonic possessions. And alongside with possession, as you brought up Catholicism, comes, if you get it in there, you got to get it out. And that comes from exorcism, which is the Catholic rite of ridding demons from someone's body and saving them in the name of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
That's right. That's right. We'll get a quick commercial break.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get a break in before we get into our demonic possessions. All right, so we thought we'd get into the experiences of people who were possessed by a demon and actually had to be exorcised by a priest. So not only were they possessed in a way that it was detrimental to their life, they had to take on they had to call on the big dogs, the exterminators, the Ghostbusters, as it were, SEAL Team 6 of getting demons out. And that means that almost all of these, and all the major ones we're going to talk about, are done by a Catholic priest, which seems to be their bread and butter. Is that no matter when people are possessed, they got to call on a Catholic priest. They got the rituals, they got the pedigree, and for whatever it's real or not real, they have the system and like the training that makes it possible to.
Yeah, you get a tool bag and stuff. Like you get
yeah.
the whole
You
kit
get
kat
certified
and caboodle
Yeah.
of being an a genuinely certified,
Yeah.
just like a certified forklift operator.
Exactly.
Except for
Certified
exorcisms. You get an
exorcist.
actual badge.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you have to be
I don't think
sanctioned.
you get a badge, but you get a whole
You
thing.
gotta get a bag and,
Yeah.
and probably like a toolkit,
Stuff.
holy water, crucifix, all the shit you need.
And the
Rosary.
the towel they wear over their necks. You get a certain color.
yeah,
It's purple, I believe, right?
Stole. It's called a stole. Sorry
Get a
about that.
purple
folks.
stole.
It's the-
But
yeah,
it's
the
also
thing you put
it also
around.
does
It has to be purple or
it
violet.
does serve a double function, just like a pair of socks. You can use a sock to strangle somebody, or you can
Right.
wear it on your foot.
Right.
Two purposes here. The purple stole can be used if you are deciding to do an exorcism or just do confession.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it
So
also
only
it
those
makes
two
a
times.
nice scarf if it's chilly out. You can
Yeah.
throw it around your neck, and it protects you from vampires. They can't suck your blood because they hate the
Do you
color.
think that's where it originated?
Purple. I don't think so, but it's multi-use, like you said. Like
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. A lot of purposes there.
Of course. So yeah, it goes far back enough that when these actual sanctioned exorcisms happen, and as much as I thought going into this, like, oh yeah, the Catholic Church, like, they love doing this shit. It's their bread and butter. If you're a hammer, everything you see is a nail. They're going to want to be exorcising demons left and right. It's great. But really, it takes a lot for them. I don't know if it happened all the way thousands of years ago, but they will not do an exorcism. It has to be an extreme situation,
Yeah.
and they need approval from a bishop, and it goes all the way up the chain to the Vatican if you're going to want to do one of these exorcisms.
Yeah.
And there's only a handful of these forklift operators that are certified worldwide.
Yep.
So one of our earliest ones that ever happened that we can see is in 1578, a poor young lady by the name of Marcia. It looks like Brossier, but I bet it's something like Boissier.
Wait a minute. People were actually named Marcia that long ago?
Martha.
Martha. Oh, I think you said Marcia. I was like,
no, sorry. Yeah,
Marcia wasn't invented till at least 1950.
until the Brady Bunch, there was no
Yeah,
Marcias.
there was
We
no
all know
Marcias
that.
around, so that's
But
why I was
yeah.
gonna say that story is not true. But it's Martha. Okay.
Martha,
Okay. Back
yeah.
to the topic.
In 1578, Martha was a young woman who was made infamous for her feigned demonic possession exorcism proceedings. So that this was the earliest example we have of an exorcism, and actually, it was proven to be false. And it wasn't until 1619 to Mademoiselle Elizabeth de Orphan, where she was given potions by the local alchemist, and it did not solve her exorcism. They had to pull in, as we said, the big dogs, which is the Catholic priest, to come in and exorcise the demon out of her. They couldn't cure with the potions. They couldn't cure with whatever else, the bleaches, I'm guessing, something like that.
Something.
But the exorcism of the demons did come out. And it's happened thousands and thousands of times. There's over 100,000 recorded exorcisms in the history of the Catholic Church. And it comes all the way back from those times and beforehand. There's examples of people exorcising demons even in like ancient times of, you know, old holy men taking the evil spirits out of you and making you able to walk again, or, you know, healing the blind, removing the curse from them. But that'll bring us to the more modern times of exorcism, just to show to you it's not just the superstition of people who don't know what light bulbs are. This is in the modern era, and some of these cases we even have audio recordings of the exorcism themselves.
We do, yeah.
Which brings us to
Pretty wild.
Roland Doe.
Roland Doe.
Who is one of the most famous exorcism cases in the history of the world, not just because of how it went down, but because of a book that was written about him in a subsequent movie that we will talk about later.
And because he's a boy.
And he's a boy.
Not common.
No. Now the devil is bi, but he definitely has a preference.
Definitely likes the women more.
Oh yeah.
Guaranteed. So,
Excuse me,
and I
for
was until Joe corrected me because I can't read. It's something that I've struggled with my whole life.
It makes the podcast hard for
Can't
both
fucking
of us,
read.
but
But
we do get it done.
I was gonna say, with a name like Roland Doe, not sure what you thought was coming for you besides getting possessed by a demon.
I mean, come on.
Turns out there's a secret about this name Roland Doe, and that it's a what's called a pseudonym, which for those of you who don't know means a fake name.
Yeah, much like John and Jane Doe, which were his mother and father in the story.
Not sure how you go from John and Jane to Roland, but we did. So
he's also referred to as Bobby or Robbie Mannheim, also a pseudonym. Still not his name. I don't know why they decided to make it more realistic. Maybe it's just to make the story sound like it's more tied down.
Bobby Ranheim?
Mannheim.
Where
Another
did they get
bad
this
last
from?
name. I don't know.
Name like that, you know what's coming for you.
You know it's coming. Maybe that's why they wanted to keep it. Though he had it coming.
Make it believable. Oh, Bobby Mannheim. Oh,
Bobby Mannheim.
Yeah.
We don't have his actual name because they wanted to keep him anonymous because he's a child, and he did go on to kind of all kinds of shit that we don't know about because we don't know what happened to him. He's anonymous. There's only legends and tales. I don't want to spoil the story though. Let's get into it.
I think Roland. We'll get to Roland, but you share your part of Roland, and I'll fill in if I need to.
Sure.
Right?
So Roland was born to a couple of German immigrants that were Lutheran. So that's a sect of Christianity that came from the Great Schism, where that chubby Martin Luther guy put a list on and said, now Catholic isn't the only way to go. That started a million other religions that are what you'd know as Baptist, Protestant, all that. So that was his religion. And he was reaching his preteen years, a tough time in the life of any young man or young lady, and a time that many kids will rebel against their parents, and they go through all these weird emotions and feelings they're not used to. Oftentimes, even without possession, they'll say, I don't know what happened to my son. Like overnight, he's a completely different person.
I found all these magazines under his bed.
He never used to be like that last year.
He would never do that.
Of course, something's come over him. And
women with no shirts on.
And
Roland.
Their shirts aren't even on in the pictures. What's happened?
What has happened to him?
They're topless.
My baby.
My baby Roly. My little roly poly oly.
As they always said.
They always say
roly poly oly's looking at. I'm gonna bring his uncle in here, and because we know he knows what's going on with this, and see how we can help him because he needs to be saved.
We'll have Uncle Ronnie show you how it works there, buddy.
Yeah, how to stop looking at the ladies.
Yeah.
And ways with eyes.
And eyes not fit for Christ.
Not fit for Christ.
Exactly. Gotta leave room for Jesus.
Roly-poly, yep.
And so this kid was having a bad time, and it obviously they wanted to bring him to counselors to try to mitigate his behavior, but his behavior got more and more sporadic, and he started lashing out in violent acts and acting just like completely crazy. Beyond just a normal rebellion, he's starting to lash out at his parents, and they're thinking, we're going to need a little bit of extra help here as far as that goes, which I believe they take him to a professional psychiatrist when that happens.
Well, I just had to tell you a little bit of possibly why he was like this. So his parents didn't sound very cool. And and he was an only child.
Yes, he's an only
like
child.
yourself.
I forgot to say that. Yeah. His only friend was his aunt, right?
Yes, and it was a spiritualist. And she showed him he got real close to her, and she showed him how to use a Ouija board. And then it's
come up before on the podcast.
She died, and just to get back to our theme, Roland and his parents both reported strange phenomena in their house, such like scratching noises coming from his mattress.
Ooh. Interesting. Objects moving around the house.
Furniture moving on their own.
The bed keeps creaking on its own over and over again.
Over and over again. There's all these holes showing up in it.
What the hell? Socks are disappearing left and right.
Socks are disappearing left and right. Blame it on the dryer. So there's some bedroom.
As we didn't mention already, it's just 1950s in America, in Maryland.
It started in 1949 according to the Atlantic.
We're like after the end of World War II here, so there's people have televisions at this point.
Yeah, and he's got some time to do, but his
not a lot of friends. His only friend has died. His auntie friend who taught him how to use the Ouija board, and things start getting strange.
Yeah, now he's really into the bedroom.
Very strange.
That's where he really likes to spend his time.
Yeah, something's happened. We're not sure what's happened to him.
Door's always shut.
He won't communicate with us anymore. I don't know why.
Exactly.
He won't even come out to eat dinner. He's so focused on whatever's going on.
Yeah.
So they do bring him to, I think, to a psychiatrist and try to figure out what's going on with him. They can't diagnose him with anything concrete. It's just like he's like, he's a growing boy, he's rebelling against whatever. Mm-hmm. So they bring him to a Lutheran priest, them being Lutheran parish goers themselves. And this priest is not only a priest, but he also has a degree in parapsychology. Now, for the folks who listen to the podcast a lot, you realize that when you put the prefix para in there, it kind of usually snuck in to sound like it's part of a larger word. Now having a degree in psychology, a little bit different than having a degree in parapsychology, because psychology is a medical practice that has to do with the mental health of people involved. Parapsychology, immediately it's about if there's ghosts in your blood. Yes, paratroopers. It's psychology in the sky. No, it's like paranormal investigation. It's having the idea of I'm an expert in this thing that's spiritualism or Ouija
moving
boards.
Candles with your eyeballs.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not a professional psychologist. I'm a professional parapsychologist, meaning I can find out if there's spirits in your mind or not. So there might be a little bit of a bias towards that. Again, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And he convinces the parents, because he's an expert in parapsychology and the priest that takes care of their parish. He says, let the kids spend the night at my place, and I'll study him. And we'll see how that goes.
Did they say yes?
They said, I thought you'd never ask.
Yes, absolutely. Take our young boy to your house for a sleepover.
As long as you need him.
No problem.
You get it all sorted out.
Is this when the priest got to know the real Roland?
The priest finds that everything the parents are saying is in fact true. There's objects moving around in the night and unexplained noises and things are happening.
And that Roland is an absolute expert of the bedroom. He knows mattresses quite well.
Please, go ahead. Take it away.
Yes. Spending a lot of time on his bed as a teenager, Roland's quite familiar with how a mattress works. And he was... I don't know how mattresses were made in the 50s, but I'm pretty sure I slept on one my whole entire life from 1955. So I do know that they're quite packed with springs.
They are.
On
they're
the
loud.
inside.
Yeah.
And they're, like, I'm dead serious. Like, the mattresses in my grandma's house were the same that they were in the 40s. So, but they're still wrapped in fabric. They're still, like, wrapped in cotton and actually feathers and shit,
Just so you can't see all the metal workings within it.
Yeah, you're not going to, it's like the bottom side definitely is not exposed, like, whatever. But anyway, so Roland decided to really show the priest to his boss and snapped off a bed spring.
Oh, that hasn't happened yet. That's during his exorcism.
Oh, sorry. Moving on. Okay, we'll get there in a second.
But that's a good teaser for what's going to happen during the exorcism. Yeah. This is just that Lutheran priest deciding that this kid has actually become possessed. He's convinced. It's not just his mentality, because objects are moving in the house. This priest writes down all these things that have happened to him, and he suggests to the parents that he cannot help this child. This child is possessed by a demon and has supernatural abilities, moving objects around. And you know what he suggests? We already said it before. He goes, call a Catholic priest. The Lutheran priest just ain't going to cut it when it comes to possession. Nope. And it isn't until those Catholic priests show up that is where Dylan's story comes in, because they decide to perform an exorcism on this kid, and it doesn't go according to plan.
Yeah, and it sounds like they didn't show up. They moved Roland
to
Georgetown University Hospital,
right,
which is a Jesuit institution in D.C., and that is when Roland saw a familiar object, the mattress,
yes,
and then said, I can use this to hurt somebody or make love. Either one.
Yeah.
And he chose to hurt
the
somebody.
Two sides of the coin.
He chose to hurt somebody, and he snapped off a bed spring from under the mattress and used it to slash the priest's arm.
He slashed the priest's arm, and they took a good timeout on the exorcism at that point, because an exorcism, much like a football game, if someone gets injured, you got to call timeout, make sure everyone's okay. So the exorcism did not get completed that day when the guy's arm got cut open. But all that did was fortify the beliefs these priests had. We got a demon on our hands here. This kid is attacking a priest.
Yep.
He's thrashing around. The bed's shaking. He's jumping around. He's screaming. And it just confirms that this kid is possessed, and we need to try twice as hard next time, and maybe we'll wear long sleeves.
Yeah. Good move. Smart move.
Just to watch out.
So
Tie the kid's hands down.
So where do you want to?
Oh, the kid is tied down the whole time, by the way. One of his arms broke free. We should mention that in most exorcisms, they tie down the limbs of everyone involved so that they don't thrash around or lash out.
Yeah, smart. Yeah, hospitals know what to do.
Yeah, or if they
Patients
like
and
a
exorcisms,
patient.
and exorcisms at the home as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, where do you want to go next? Because then the timeline-wise, they left their house, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they had to go back more than once to perform exorcisms. That's another thing we find from like the cultural idea of exorcisms or from TV and movies. You figure that there's the one big boom, you're in, you're out, it's a crazy event, and then you're done. But a lot of times when they have these exorcisms taking place, they do it multiple times, almost like it's like a therapy session. You have to do it over and over and over again to finally get the demon out.
Like a chiropractor.
And like a chiropractor or an acupuncturist, I guess. And they do it over and over again and they do it really hard over and over again until he really just gives up and really submits to them. And when he does, the demon leaves him. And I guess the story goes he went to live a pretty normal life afterwards. And it became just a functional member of society, and he was chosen never to talk about it again. And that's why we only know him as Roland Doe and not as whatever his real name is, which is John Smith or whatever his name is.
Yeah, it could be John Smith, could be Bartholomew, Saint Jacob.
Could be John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
For all we know, we don't know.
His name is my name, too, for the record.
We're just sharing the story.
Yeah.
We weren't there, but...
Yeah,
but the only quote I have
tale,
from Roland, the only words I have on this whole entire thing that he ever said was, Roland told the priests, he's gone.
He's gone. And then
he went on to be a successful biomedical engineer. And just kidding. No, he didn't. We don't know.
We don't know. But they said
George Bush.
He became the
49th president or whatever.
I don't know, 41st, something like that.
36.
Not important.
Yeah.
But yeah, he went on to do that, which I think is interesting that he went on just to live a normal life, and that's part of the reason why they keep his name anonymous is because people didn't harass him his whole life saying, "Aren't you that kid who was possessed? You weirdo."
Yeah, great start to high school.
Yeah, you think your high school was bad. How about you possessed kid? But that story went on to inspire a book that was written called The Exorcist. And he changed the boy in the story to a girl named Reagan. And they went on to make a film about it that we'll probably mention later. But that inspired that story.
Yeah, and Reagan was also inspired by another quick story we have here from 1921. There was a book this is a little bit chronologically sort of, it's the same thing. What inspired that?
As we do.
1921, German psychologist named Traugott Osterreich, which I believe means Austria, collected...
Super German name.
Super German, yep. This dude just collected a bunch of eyewitness accounts for his book called Possession. Demoniacal.
Possession.
Demoniacal, spelled a little differently.
Oh, so like maniacal and demon, like demoniacal?
Demoniacal, yeah. Yeah, I can't read.
Interesting.
And... yeah, it involves a young woman named Magdalena. That's with an E at the end, and in German you pronounce that And she lives in, and we think that Magdalena is her real name. And
interesting that it kind of sounds like Mary Magdalene though, which is the lady of the evening that Jesus befriended.
Yeah, Lady of the Night, I mean. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is instead of
sex worker.
In the Middle East. This is in Orlach, Germany. Classic place for things like this.
Oh boy.
And she was a peasant, and she was an industrious child. Quote unquote, she was always threshing, hemp beating, and mowing.
Okay, well, I thought you said thrashing earlier. No, threshing, hemp beating, and mowing.
She was a farmer.
Yeah, she was farming.
Sounds a little wild, though. She's threshing, hemp beating, and mowing all the time.
So she's cutting down weeds, and she's mowing the lawn, and she's picking weeds. It sounds way different than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and I bet if you think deeply, folks, about maybe why she started to see strange stuff all the time in the barn where she tended cows.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's some possible explanations that are slowly growing around the edges of the farm that may have something to do with this. Anyways, but she started to get tormented by voices and sensations and spontaneous outbursts of fire and all these things.
Spontaneous bovine combustion.
Yeah. And so That summer, she started complaining of a spirit that had flown upon her, pressed her down, and endeavored to throttle her.
Oh boy, this is
Yeah.
so flowery language for how violent
Things
it
are
is.
getting crazy. So she would fall victim to full-blown possessions.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say AIDS. Thank God.
We made it through that one.
God damn.
And she referred to this entity as a black one that would...
Whoa, wait, what?
The black... Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. All right, well...
Well,
it says
1920s
it.
Germany? Okay.
Yeah, it said it. So the black one would descend and supplement her consciousness with its own. And he was a masculine shape in a frock, as if issuing from a dark cloud. She could never clearly describe his face, although he was coming towards her. A contemporary observer wrote that she sees him in approach, always from the left side.
Oh, it's sinister. The left side.
Left side, like if you're lefty, they beat it out of you.
The side of the devil.
And it was a cold hand which seizes the back of her neck and enters into her.
Oh my goodness.
And she just started going wild, and she eventually lost consciousness during these episodes. Her ego disappeared completely, and a fresh one came through, aka that bad black one. And she speaks with her throat in the deep here with the cerebral nerves, and as if she was paralyzed but can only talk, and this whole thing. So
kind of like
when you see the movie, she's very like this story about Magdalena.
Yeah.
That guy took the actual descriptions of how she is in these episodes, put that in his book.
That's interesting.
And then William Peter Blady.
But am I mistaken? It kind of sounds like she's talking about the movie This Is the End, where there were Jonah Hill sleeping, and then a big black demon comes and bangs him in the bed, and then he becomes possessed afterwards. Is this
sounds about like right?
Okay, yeah. Just make sure I'm following.
I didn't say that.
It's
on
very
here,
flowery
but-
language, but it's basically.
He nails it sharp. This is no dream. This is really happening. Ah! Something not that chill happened last night.
Yeah, so this was another
That's some
inspiration on
creepy
top
shit.
of Roland.
Yeah.
That went into The Exorcist. So you have a combination of Roland's experience with the actual description of this chick.
And like how
doing
she was
the
acting
stuff.
when she was
Yeah,
possessed.
yeah,
and
exactly. So it's
yeah,
like-
the guttural sounds and the crazy
Yeah,
speaking.
Throat speaking, part 2
Ooh.
of that. Yeah, yeah.
That's some creep. The speaking
That's some
it
real
really
stories.
does get me with how people talk, because
Pretty
it's just
creepy.
such a departure from how they normally speak, and it seems like beyond the acting ability of a young person, be able to they just act like that and just so out of control, crazy, and just fucking creepy all around.
Yeah,
Creepy
absolutely.
tale.
Creepy stories.
Well, before we get into our next tale, I just wanted to mention a couple other indicators of possession, all of which will come apart in our story today, but they seem to be like the flag marks of if you're possessed or not. One of them being that deep guttural throat speaking, the thrashing about, and just this writhing and just almost like you're having a seizure, just shaking about. There's also notices of speaking a language that you're not familiar with, almost like you are
speaking
someone
in tongues.
speaking through you, speaking in tongues, speaking Latin, speaking other languages that you're not familiar with or shouldn't know, that maybe a demon could speak for you. And I guess demons know a lot of languages or whatever.
Projectile vomiting straight up onto the ceiling.
Vomiting on the ceiling. Spin your head around. Oh, that one wasn't mentioned. That's just in the movie. But also on characteristic strength. You have the strength of like 10
Yes.
men. You can throw people across the room or throw people off you, and that's why you have to tie people down. They're just so strong when they're possessed. They can writhe around as well as levitation to be able
Levitation,
to be able to
definitely on
float in the air.
Yeah.
And also I heard about possession gravity, which is the concept of being your body becomes so dense that people can't pick you up even if you're very tiny. Like you become so heavy with the spirit.
Like your friend that you're going to talk about soon.
Exactly right.
She wasn't big.
Not very, and got smaller as it went. So yeah, I thought it would be worth mentioning those different characteristics, because most of these stories about possession have at least a few of these in there. And in fact, for the Catholic Church to be able to perform possession, they have to get certified, call their boss, and have it the official possession. They have to experience at least some of these aspects, or they won't do it. Because even though, like I said, I think they'd be chomping at the bit to do these all the time. It's like it's their their glorified day. Here we go, it's our great day. They are very careful about not mixing it up with someone who has mental health problems or is experiencing schizophrenia or psychosis, hysteria, because they don't want to be getting in the way, which surprised me and I'm actually happy about. They don't want to get in the way of mental health and modern medicine. They want to make sure people are being taken care of. And in a lot of these cases, they will actually insist that they're checked out by a doctor, and the priest will go and observe them for days on end to make sure that they truly believe it is a true demonic possession. And as many times as they have been done exorcisms, countless many more have been refused, and they said, we won't do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not possessed, or if they are possessed, that we can't take care of you, and you need to pray the gay away, as it were.
Yep.
Which is a whole different kind of exorcism there, but yeah. So that brings us to I think is the most famous case of possession of all time. If it isn't, it will be after this episode, because this episode is of the Dylan and Joe Basement podcast, which will one day be the most famous podcast of all time. Just give us some time. And that is the case of Annalise Michel, also known as her Americanized name in the film, Emily Rose. And this is relatively modern too. This is in the 1970s that this possession occurred. But her problems started well before then. She grew up in Germany. That's why her name is Annalise Michel, and her and the whole family spoke German, and they were all devout Christians. She grew up from the day that she was born, raised in a super conservative and super strict household, which means you grow up, you do your job, no boys around, church multiple times a week, you're praying all day, being modest, to the point where Annalise, who is by all accounts a very smart and kind girl, she actually went to school for theology. She went to college to get her master's in theology. She wanted to become religious on the books. In a time in Germany, it was actually a little bit behind the United States as far as, women's feminist movement. So it still was more likely that you're going to be just working at home, having kids at that time, a lot more. That came later in Germany than did in America. But she wanted to, go to school and get her degree in theology and just become a strict Christian lady her whole life. And so did her parents. They were very proud of that. But unfortunately, she had health problems her entire life. I mean, if anything you heard of, she got it. Measles, mumps, influenza. She had blackouts. She had sleep paralysis where she would wake up in the night and have that part of your nervous system that's supposed to shut off when you're sleeping, so that when you're dreaming, you're not punching and kicking and running around. Some people, in fact, a lot of people wake up during that and their body's still paralyzed. And not only is that terrifying to not be able to move but be conscious, your brain tries to square that circle because humans aren't made to do that. So you start to see things like shadow people in a lot of cases. We'll report people being held down and feeling like there's a giant weight on their chest and they can't move. And it's just terrifying. And she went through all that as a young girl growing up into her teenage years, including having epileptic seizures to the point where they brought her to a neurologist and they said she must have her frontal lobe issue. She's got sleep paralysis problems. She's got seizures. They started trying to put her on epilepsy medication and saying, well, this is all we can do for her because there's nothing wrong with her psychologically. I mean, she's feeling these crazy feelings and blacking out, and she feels like there's entities that are pushing her down and haunting her. She's seeing things, but it's all part of her epilepsy, which is what they thought going into it.
Yeah, that stuff's scary. I mean, I get sleep paralysis sometimes. I do have that.
I can imagine.
It's weird, but it never has made me but I can see how if I've never sometimes you struggle to open your eyes, and then once you do, you're awake. But some people might get to that point and they feel paralyzed, and it's like something else. But
yeah,
I'm very aware of myself and I know what's going on. But yeah, that's a big theme with this stuff, is that sleep paralysis thing with a lot of issues, especially that she's had a lot of other stuff going on. So it kind of is making sense.
I mean, she was in and out of the hospital 20 times before she even turned 13, and that was for major diseases. So even without the psychological problems she was having with her sleep paralysis or her epilepsy, she was just in and out of the hospital just with all kinds of
banged
diseases.
Up from stuff. I mean,
she could have died many times before she even reached her teenage years.
A lot of these other folks that we have on here too have had a lot of issues with just health, like getting all the plagues that are going around at the time.
All the plagues.
All of them that stuff,
Got 'em all.
depletes the brain of a lot of chemicals and stuff. It's pretty rough. So, anyway, so what happened with her?
And I think that also probably makes you susceptible to more problems as your life goes on. Like the more the world beats you down, the more that you become vulnerable to it. Unfortunately, it's what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but what scars you makes you vulnerable all the times to people. So as she did get older and she was leaving high school and going to college, she started experiencing these bouts of extreme paralysis in her waking hours, and her body would seize up and get completely catatonic, like people who have severe schizophrenia, where they just freeze up in shape. And her family obviously was freaking out about it, and they're thinking, it's, even though they are devoutly religious and every day it's praying the rosary and everything like that, they still were like, this is a medical issue, we need to take her to the hospital. And she started blacking out when she had these. She wouldn't remember it even happening until she was done with it. Obviously, she was probably extremely sore, like going through a seizure where all your muscles are tensed up for such a long time. You're just drained out. So they took her to all kinds of neurologists, and they couldn't find any problem with her at all. Multiple ones. They send her home, and she would be fine for a couple of weeks, and then again she'd get into these bouts where she get all seized up, and she started seeing demons in her waking hours, not just during sleep paralysis or seizures. She would be seized up, and she would wake up screaming and crying because she would see in her room demons looking at her and speaking to her and scaring the ever-loving fuck out of her.
That'll do it.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Fucking terrifying shit. Excuse me. I feel like I've been talking for a while about her. Anything
no, it's okay.
I'll keep going.
I don't have a whole lot here besides I saw the movie when it came out. And it was definitely the scariest of the group. I mean, she's like, things are on fire, the bugs, so yeah, I think it's totally, you're telling a great story. I think it's a good time to just keep rolling with it.
Will do.
Yeah.
Keep rolling dough.
Keep rolling dough. Keep rolling Ronald dough.
Yeah. So she does come out at, like, a lot of times she's taking a lot of time off of school, whether it is being sick or having these catatonic events and these terrible things happening to her. But somehow she still keeps up with her schoolwork, and she's going to college, and she has to take a couple months off and goes back, and they're back and forth. She keeps doing it. She meets a boy in college named Peter, falls in love with him. It's her boyfriend. But no hanky-panky going on there. They're super Christian.
Germans.
And I would vote for this guy, Peter. I don't know much about him, but he seems to be the best boyfriend of all time, because as the story goes on, he goes through this entire thing with her and doesn't break up with her, which it would have taken less than 10% of this, and I'd have been like, sorry, this is way too much for me. You're crazy. But she starts experiencing these things so severely that all medical doctors don't know what to do with her besides to tell her that she needs to stay home, need to try to take care of her as much as possible. Even though it seems that she's having super psychotic breaks, they can't diagnose it in her because it doesn't last. It'll last for a short period of time, and then she'll act normal for a week and get back to her schoolwork, and then all of a sudden, like a blink in the night, she'll start to have these dark, sunken-in eyes, and she gets catatonic and can't breathe, can't see, screaming, talking of demons. And that's when the story turns into the more demonic possession side, because it starts to get so severe that she doesn't act like herself anymore. She starts to have these tendencies to lash out at her parents. The whole function of her life is to follow the Christian religion, and she starts getting averse to Christian symbols like crucifixes and a holy water. She wants to go away from them. And her father starts to think, even though he was the last one to think it, the mother and the sister, there's a demon, it's got to be a demon. And the father's like, no, it's a psychological issue. We have to just stay with the science. And at that degree, he goes, we're going to Italy, and we're going to some monasteries. We're going to pray the shit out of you. And when she got there, she was throwing a fit and screaming the entire time. She was tearing apart religious icons, and everyone in the entire group said she smelled like burning shit.
Oof, bad smell.
I mean, shit's already bad, but burning shit is terrible.
Not good.
So this whole time, her boyfriend Peter's staying with her, and he's having to bring her home where she's having these psychological events where she's seeing demons, she's freaking out. And when they take her home for the final time from college, that's when you get into the real movie shit where she is completely refusing food. She's screaming, speaking in tongues, speaking Latin.
No, she just learned it all because they brought her to a monastery.
Well, that's another part of it where they say, well, she would have never known Latin. Well, she studied Latin for 4 years as part of her theology degree. She did know Latin very well. That's
pissed
not really
your parents for over pushing religion on you too much, then you say, well, I don't really know how to get to. I'm going to say all these horrible things in Latin.
Yeah, there's a lot of creepy shit that she did that's like, oh, I don't know why. It could be possession. But the knowing Latin part's kind of bullshit because she studied Latin. Like, she could speak Latin pretty well. Better than anyone you ever know. So that's kind of weird. But yeah, she speaking of pissing your parents off, she was pissing on herself. And it became a huge issue that she was starving herself to death. And she was, like you said, she was refusing all food. She was eating bugs, and she became completely violent towards her parents. For one occasion, she stayed under her dinner table for 2 days, barking like a dog, and Peter still stayed with her, trying to keep her okay. I mean, come on, at that point, you gotta be crazy.
She has to be doing something to him he likes.
Maybe much like Ronald, know how to work at changing degrees in your life.
Yep, not sure. We'll find out.
So at the end of all that, it was so terrifying to them. They said there's no other way. We have to get help from a priest. And again, the priest went in there thinking, well, this can't be. We have to make sure all the doctors. And they said, we've done all this. That's why we have you here. Look at all the crosses. Look at all the shit. This girl isn't eating. She only weighed 120 pounds before, and now she's under 90 pounds. And she's sunken in eyes. She's becoming violent. She's speaking in those screaming tones in different languages. And that priest, after only seeing her a handful of times, he goes back to his bishop to try to tell him, I need permission to go help this girl. And that night, that priest sees visions of demons in his room for the first time in his life. And he's convinced. He's terrified. He goes, this is the most real thing I've ever seen in my life. It's a real possession. I've never even seen this before. And he's contacting this girl. It's coming back with me. The demons are coming back with me home. I cannot escape them, even in my own life.
Yeah.
So the bishop says, all right, it's 1975. You can do an exorcism, but don't tell anybody about it. This is fucking weird that we're even doing this now. And he sends those two priests there, and it was within, like I said, as the movie showed, she's genuflecting thousands of times. Her knees are disintegrating. Her whole body's disintegrating. She's dying. She's dying while still alive and psychologically damaged to some degree. And it's not just the one time. Big, exorcism, and it's all over. They did 67 exorcisms over the course of 10 months on this poor girl.
It's a lot. It drains people of their energy and can kill people. The exorcism, how intense it is.
Yeah, it has killed many people. And although it didn't happen during one of the exorcisms, ultimately it did kill Annalise Michel because she did die of starvation and dehydration. She refused to drink as her body hurt away more and more. And as part of one of the exorcisms, she did reveal to the priest who was inside her. It was 7 demons, not just the one, all 7. And many of them you might have heard of before. 7, really weird. Like the 7 we talked about earlier. One of them, but strangely enough, it wasn't the 7 that we talked about earlier. One of them is Lucifer, which is that's the big one.
Okay,
that's
That's
the big dog. Yeah. One of them being Nero, which we talked about before.
Bad dude. Yeah,
bad
I've
dude.
been in there too.
Yeah, Judas Iscariot, the guy who betrayed Jesus. Adolf Hitler is one of them.
Interesting guy to have in there.
Huh? Yeah, that does make the story a little strange.
You don't want him.
They didn't put that in the movie because it's kind of fucking weird and also kind of undercuts the entire thing. But I mean, if it is just dead people, then why not just be another one of those?
Yeah, he usually in popular culture usually shows up with someone putting a pineapple in his ass. Pineapple up his ass. Never saw him in.
Yeah. Apparently, she would even argue within the multiple personalities in her head of multiple demons, and the priest would see her argue as like Judas talking to Satan or Hitler arguing with Nero.
That's gonna be a fun one to watch.
I mean,
it's a whole show in itself.
That's a real slapstick skit on SNL right there, waiting to happen.
Mine come here to me.
Oh, shut up,
shut up, Nero. Yeah, I got that.
You think you're so fucking
burning
smart.
people at the stake over here. I'm just telling you to come over here and burn these bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the strangest things, just to give credence, because I always had to play a little even-handed at first, at least. She was able to tell these priests things about their lives that no one knew but them.
Yeah, it's something.
And able even apparently speak to one of them in Chinese, which she did not learn that in school. One of the times she was speaking as Satan said to the guy, "You've been stealing souls from me in China. I know you. I know who you are." And talked about his life and saying that like, you've been trying to convert people in China to Christianity, and I don't like that because I'm the devil and I want all the souls to be on my side. So there was a lot of stuff that happened to these priests to the degree that they went in skeptical and they were terrified of this girl because they were they truly believe this girl was possessed by Satan himself, and he knew things that they couldn't, including that super strength that they had. They had to tie her down multiple times where she would throw people across the room. Her family reported that she had the strength of 10 men, and she could throw her father and the priest to the ground. It took at least 6 people to hold her down a lot of the times because of just the amount of strength in this 90-pound little German 23-year-old girl. So.
Yeah, I got nothing to say about that. I mean, it's easy to make some jokes, but there are some things about most of these that go into the unexplained.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, unfortunately, she did eventually was freed of this possession, but unfortunately, it was because that she passed away, and they never really did get the demons out without killing her. And they didn't kill her during an exorcism, but she was, like I said, she's dead from neglect, and they were actually brought up on charges. Both the priests and both her parents were brought up on manslaughter by neglectful homicide in Germany. And brought into the case were the tapes of the exorcisms for the defense, saying like this girl was actually possessed. They did what they could to save her. We weren't just trying to, mistreat someone with mental illness, which is what most of the world would think, because how would you believe this girl's possessed? But at the same time, it was so convincing of what happened to her, and they couldn't really help her out. So they gave the priest both 6 months in jail, and they gave her parents, which I guess you can happen in Germany. They can give you you've suffered enough. So you can be guilty, but they'll give you you have no sentence because you've suffered enough because of what happened to your daughter. And so that was the story of Anneliese Michel, later made into the movie Emily Rose.
Yeah, and they said that at the end here. So the morning after, like the last exorcism, she was visited by the Virgin Mary, blah, blah, and she chose to endure her suffering and received a stigmata on her hands.
Yeah, so she received stigmata, which is something that happens in miracles, and I don't know if there's ever an example of it happening naturally. It's mostly people claim it's happened to them, but it's when you receive the wounds of Christ, so holes in your hands and your feet.
Okay, yeah.
So you could say that she received that by the Virgin Mary in order to be like, oh, this is my symbol of giving myself up for the better of humanity. I'm going to suffer through this to make everyone else, not have to suffer with me anymore. Or you could say this girl, put her hands on a barbed wire fence and cut a fucking hole in her hand because she was going crazy. She's also in her early 20s, which unfortunately is a lot of the times where people start exhibiting the mental illness, schizophrenia, things like that. Yeah. And especially when you're hyper-religious growing up your entire life. So that's the story of Anneliese Michel, poor girl.
And on that note, we're going to take our commercial break here, and we're going to come back with a wrap around to something we talked about earlier. We'll see you soon.
The power of the basement compels you.
Der Hass lässt hier
Der
keinen.
Neid über die andere Engel.
Was gibt's nicht, Ruhe? Ruhe gibt's nur da oben.
Ruhe gibt's nur dort, wo die Liebe ist.
Ja, bei uns gibt's nur ja,
Nur Hass.
Ja,
Und wo Hass ist, da gibt's keine Ruhe.
nein. Und für uns gibt's nie Ruhe. Nie.
Weil,
Ewigkeit.
weil er nicht dorthin kommt, wo der Schöpfer ist.
Aber für uns gibt's kein Zurück.
Im Namen des Vaters.
Alright, so now you guys have just seen a couple of clips. Sounds. Mostly the sounds. It's usually dark. The sights.
Just the sounds.
Just the sounds.
Terrifying.
Terrifying sounds of what this possession sounds like coming out of a small female. Where they don't, from their friends and family and from the history, they don't usually sound like this or say these things.
I mean, the difference between their normal speaking voice and this, it seems beyond just someone putting on an affect or screaming. It's this guttural, horrific, and especially after she's been doing this for multiple weeks straight without ever eating anything besides a couple of spiders. You figure your throat would be torn up and you'd be laryngitis, be just
tired,
whispering, but you just raving on. Very crazy. Which brings us to one of our most modern cases we've ever heard of. That was in 1976 that she passed away. And the hits do not stop. They keep coming. If you have been listening the whole time, which I sure hope you have, okay, there is a thing we open up this podcast with about a poor girl named Louisa from Tacoma, Washington, we want to continue that story right now.
40 years after Annalisa came Louisa. Annalise came Louisa in Tacoma, Washington.
Sensing a theme here, Satan's got a type.
Got a type. A little bit of recap. She has been experiencing some unexplained things, went through a lot of trauma, and then just kept seeing psychologists and psychiatrists and therapists and doctors who...
Deja vu.
Yeah, similar thing, who just kept not really being able to figure out what's going on with her at night and this type of stuff. And then she started having some kids. She had her first child in a C-section, very traumatic.
Sure.
Traveled the world, got things like E. coli and other diseases, and was just pretty run down. But then she just kept having kids. And...
real go-getter, just keep on trucking.
Yeah, she didn't let it stop her, which is really great. But the episodes got more intense. The sleep paralysis with, someone breathing on the back of her
She has sleep
neck.
paralysis as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
man, yeah.
And they said that's what it is. And she'd wake up and somebody was breathing on the back of her neck and she can't move. And then another one, she woke up and somebody's arm was pressing on her collarbone, and her husband started noticing these things too, and he would see it and he would hear it, and he would hear these voices and these type of things. And Louisa was actually half Native American. A quarter Native American.
Mm-hmm.
Her grandmother warned her, when you're traveling, when you're doing things, be aware of these spirits. And we'll get into that. So she couldn't figure out why these were happening. And she started to think something was pursuing her at this point. After having a couple kids, she started to think that maybe this is something more than just sleep paralysis. So she went down the internet. Again, this is 2016, so she went on to like Reddit and YouTube. And,
WebMD.
Yeah, exactly.
ChristMD.
Yep. However, WebMD is not going to do a whole lot because I don't know if you know this, but in the hospital, they don't have an ICD-10 code for demonic possession. ICD-10 codes.
Do they not?
They don't.
Man.
Yeah, you can't. If you go to the ER and you say you're possessed, insurance doesn't have a code for that. ICD-10 codes are what insurance is used to bill the hospitals.
That sucks.
And they have ones like bent penis and it's called something else, but they have an actual thing for all these, but they don't have one for possession.
Do they have one for major dissociative disorder or schizophrenia?
Absolutely.
Oh, maybe they might use that one.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll see how the story goes.
We'll see how it goes. They didn't say what she, it's her medical record, so we didn't get what she actually had on the hospital. But you can assume that, exactly. You can assume that sleep paralysis and schizophrenia and these sort of things. But she on the internet and then just started reading about people like her who are experiencing a lot of similar things, and and she started going over like images and these things, and she just said to her friends and family and her husband that she's became obsessed with the topic because she could relate to it.
Well, I can imagine if you're chronically ill with something, it's going to consume you because it's all you're thinking about all the time. It's plaguing you. Yeah. So why wouldn't you be all consumed with it? It's all consuming of you. It's understandable that someone would become obsessed with this when it's plaguing you night by night and day by day. How can you not think about it? I mean, imagine just having a headache for a full week. All you can think about is how to get rid of my headache,
right? Or what
Googling
it is,
what's going on with me. It must be similar, but this time it's much scarier because it's not on the registry of modern illnesses.
Exactly, and that's why we got this one's interesting because it's modern, and just again, we're a couple states away, but the Catholic Church believes that this is on the rise. And in 2018, just in Indianapolis alone, there are 1,700 requests for an exorcism.
That is insane that it's on the rise. You figured that it would be more of like an old way of thinking that people have possession being a problem. But yeah, I heard that too in my research that actually within the past decade, there's been more requests for exorcisms than in the past 50. It just keeps increasing.
Yeah, and the church thinks that it's because people are abandoning the church and going towards more of the occult. So witchcraft, Ouija boards, whatever.
They would say that.
Of course they would, but it just had to be said because that's what their statement. Sure. That's what their statement was. So
yeah, that's an interesting take.
So this priest that she went to, she is now in Orlando. I'm not sure how she got there, but she went to church. And then she went to go talk to a priest and about what's going on. And he just said, "Have you dabbed in the occult?" And
he didn't say dabbled. He said, "Have you dabbed?" She's ripping shatter.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hitting that THC wax. Have you dabbed in the occult? Because you're
Just
high as
dabbled.
fuck right now. Your eyes are red, and so is your soul, honey.
Yeah, don't be using that. So she said, well, actually, my grandfather and I used to use our Ouija board, and then he died a couple years ago. Yeah, and it was actually after he died, she started using it.
To be able to speak to him.
Yeah, exactly. And then so the priest also said, all right, well, you need to get rid of that thing. And anything else you have, like tarot cards, amulets, pagan symbols.
Harry Potter books, crystals, anal plugs, and birthstones. All that stuff's got to go. Ricky Gervais shows.
Office season 2 UK, gotta go.
Get rid of that. It's all gotta go.
But all seriousness,
Marilyn Manson CDs.
Yep.
Get rid of them.
Korn, the band, get rid of them.
You don't even eat corn from now on.
Yep, don't even do that. I think there's that other female singer that's not... Alanis Morissette CDs gotta go.
Oh yeah, Jagged Little Pill. Take it out of your collection.
Too mad, too angry. All seriousness. Keep the butt plug, but
that's fine.
But everything else that we mentioned, including Alanis Morissette, can serve as a doorway for demons. So
right, you're opening up your body to be possessed by evil spirits.
Yep. So
you have to let them in. It's like a vampire; they need to be invited in.
Yeah. They find a hole and they go in it.
Oh yeah, they really do.
There's a hole, they'll find it.
And the more provocatively you dress, metaphorically, they will find a way in.
They will find a way in. So, another. Again, we've mentioned this in the podcast. One person seeing UFO.
That's a crackpot.
50,000 people. Okay.
Now we got a trend.
So she keeps spending time with friends, and they know her very well, and. I'm
glad she has friends.
Yeah, she definitely seems cool.
A lot of these people don't actually have friends, much like Ronald Doe didn't have any friends at all, or Roland Doe rather.
Yeah, he didn't.
He used the Ouija board to get his possession, but he didn't really have any friends either. So
don't be doing that alone if you're depressed. I mean, God knows what's gonna happen. So, and again, as I don't know if I mentioned it, but respect the Ouija board. Weird things happen. I'm not saying they don't. I don't use them anymore. It's been long, and I'm good. But
I don't respect anything made by Milton Bradley.
I have been to the Ouija board museum, and you get some vibes there, my friend. So, anyways, she went through some friends, and then she came back to Steven, which we're assuming is the husband. Doesn't say it, but she's usually an affable, meandering conversationalist. Mm-hmm. But now, she assumed a slow, measured tone, just like this, only her version. So he's seen this a bunch of times, slowly starting to creep in that she does this whole thing. And this is when he decided to grab his tablet, possibly an iPad or the Samsung.
It really does just kind of jolt you into the modern day where one of these exorcism stories has an iPad in it.
Yep, let's get the iPad. So he did this, and just like most UFO sightings, the footage is dark and poor sound, but it's a 20-minute video pointed directly at her, and this is after she starts having her dark tone. She says to the iPad, "You humans have your own sense of time. I have plenty of time. I have all the time in the world." She then shifts into a staccato whisper. Not sure what that means. "It's your wife I want," she says. "Not only her body, but her soul." As she speaks, she jerks her head from side to side. At first quickly, like a marionette. Don't know what that is. Please let us know.
It's Team America puppet. Puppets on a string is a marionette.
Okay, so she's being a marionette. Not sure where you learned that fucking from. No one knows that.
Marionette, most people know what it is.
No one knows what a marionette is except for Joe. Prove me wrong.
Write in, and if you don't know what a marionette is.
Just say 1, 2, yes, no, butt plug. Just write something. We'll know what you mean.
Yeah, we'll get you.
Yep. And then slowly, like a viper swing to the sounds of a snake's charmer, pungi.
What?
That's what it says. Oh, sorry. That's not what she said. She moves her head side to side after she speaks like a snake charmer's, I guess, the way he's doing the flute thing.
I'm guessing it's this kind of deal, like da-na-na-na-na.
Yep. And then, then after she stops doing the pungi, she says, her demon says, God can't save her. Do you understand that? She's mine. And then she arches her spine and her face goes through a series of contortions. So you can go see this. We're going to try to put some footage on here. It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Viewer discretion advised, not for children under 18 years old.
This is some scary stuff.
And when her husband first started seeing this type of stuff going on with Louisa, he thought there was a psychiatric disorder, and she's had her share of struggles.
Sure.
And she has some PTSD issues and a history of alcohol abuse. But that's not shit that I see when people are drinking. But and so he thought that was probably the deal. Like, all right, she's just needs some time to heal. But he changed his mind when strange things started happening. So when these strange things started happening, same thing that happened with the other folks.
Yeah.
Electronic devices started to turn on, turn off. Lights were smashed were starting to glow up. And just things that he's known since knowing Louisa, he told our people here, really disturb your reality. So, just more witness accounts from her friend Girk. Oh, sorry, Wyona Girk. Just said the same
Winona. I bet her name's
Winona.
Winona Gerke.
Gerke.
It's like the German pronunciation. Gerke.
Gerke. Yep.
Poor shit.
Yeah, and she just saw things like her facial expression. It didn't seem like her. Creeped her out so bad. Feeling for her own safety. Girk wrestled her to the ground and eventually managed to calm her down. And then she slept on the couch. But we don't. At this point, that's
not the story yet.
So yeah,
it's on the couch.
Her friend got a wrestling match.
They weren't going to sleep together that night.
Yeah, she slept on the couch and she was
in the doghouse.
Wyona her bed. I mean, she gave Elisa her bed.
That's nice.
But the whole point of the story is that there's footage of this.
Don't hold your breath on that one. We will show it. It has to exist if we show it for most things. Yeah,
we want to show it to
which
you.
We will. But
we don't know how the exorcism went because didn't talk about it. But
but they have to get an exorcism.
Yeah, this is.
But I imagine this one wasn't sanctioned by the Catholic Church because we don't have a record of the newer exorcisms.
Yeah, they said they don't like to do that as much.
They don't like to do it as much, but it doesn't mean they don't do it because even Annalise Michel's exorcism was off the record at the time, and only because of the court case was it brought to light. So, who knows who did that exorcism, which makes me want to bring up just one last tidbit about exorcism, which is that there was one guy who was the most famous exorcist, maybe of all time, named Gabriele Amorth, and he was actually the official exorcist of the Vatican, which means that the Pope said, you're the guy who does the exorcisms, who claimed to have done 20,000 exorcisms. Wow. And that's way too many. He's lying. But
20,000.
What he qualified it with, he said that every exorcism doesn't mean that someone was possessed, and it doesn't mean that it was like 4 hours long. Some of them can only be a couple of minutes long. Some of them are multiple hours. But he does claim that at least 90 people that he did an exorcism on were possessed by an actual demon. And a lot of those other ones, he did it. Maybe they weren't actually possessed, or maybe he did a shorter version. But this guy was the all-time leading hitter when it comes to exorcisms. And he lived to the ripe old age of 91 years old.
It's pretty good for a guy.
Before he passed away in the year 2016, the same year as Louisa. Coincidence?
I don't think so.
I don't fucking think so.
Wow.
And so this guy was the main exorcist guy. His occupation is listed as exorcist and writer, not priest. Interesting.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He definitely wrote a lot of books. Like a lot of these people who are paranormal investigators, mediums, or psychics, they have side careers, which is telling you about how cool it is that they do it.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of money to be made by doing exorcisms, but you could definitely sell a big time book about it, and hopefully you can get a book deal made into a movie, optioned out, you get a little money on the back end. Mm-hmm. Now, not only are you saving people from the spirits of hell, you get to buy a new yacht because your story is so fucking crazy and scary and cool.
It's great. It's you don't bump into guys like that as much, you know. Like
I wish I would though.
Where you could go, you could meet that guy and be like, "Wow, you're an exorcist."
I would love to have.
Be like, "All right, I don't mean to bother you, but what's the craziest shit you've ever seen?"
Oh yeah,
That'd
great.
be so fun.
Tell me all about it.
I did that just a few days ago with a guy.
Oh yeah, do tell.
Had to get a car towed, and the tow truck driver showed up, and he was doing some stuff. I was like, so
And he's like, your car has a spirit in it.
it probably does, but
Exercise your car.
yeah, that car survives on prayers alone. It's the only reason it works. So
Cars cannot live on oil alone.
yeah, hope and faith is what powers this car. There is nothing else at play here. Nothing.
By the grace of God, there does it
This
go.
car starts, and it didn't start, which is why I brought him. He was there.
Oh yeah,
in the parking lot.
it was.
But he had to the car,
Asmodeus
and I
taking
got
over
to
your
ask
car.
him what's the craziest shit he's ever seen, and it was not interesting.
that's a shame.
But that's what I got. Yeah, I didn't have any other option.
worth
I
asking
didn't
him.
have the lead exorcist there to be like, hey, I had a tow truck driver.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to interview
I
some guy who just did one exorcism. Never mind the guy who was like the
20,000.
the Ted Williams of doing exorcisms.
Yeah.
Like this guy knows how to fucking crank that ball right out of the park.
Yeah.
And as any great exorcist was, he was born in Italy himself, so he's an old Italian priest.
Well, that's where the exorcist training camp is, I believe, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a few of them, but that's the headquarters.
That's the Quantico of doing exorcism. That's the FBI training facility, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
in Virginia. So there's that. I looked all over the internet and it doesn't seem that there's any footage of Louisa's exorcism. No video footage, not even the audio. I mean, maybe it's out there somewhere and I just couldn't find it, but I found everything else on this podcast. So that Atlantic article must have some kind of information we don't have. And I guess Dylan just hoped that it existed and said it did, but it didn't actually. So, look into stuff, folks, before you just blindly say it's true or not. Thank you. Back to the podcast. Everybody's in there. Oh, man.
So you guys have seen the clip.
Scary.
So I do want to bring a correction into things.
Please.
There are 3 exorcist training facilities sanctioned by the Vatican,
All right.
and one is in Chicago.
Nice.
Great place for it. Rome and Manila.
Which is in the Philippines.
Was wondering.
So those are 3 super centers of Catholicism in the world, which is not surprising to me at all. I would picture one being in South America, but I guess they
They get it all figured out down there.
Yeah,
they don't need it. They don't need that. They don't need us for that.
But yeah, one of the most Catholic places in the world, the Philippines, which it's legally okay to execute people who are accused of drug dealing and gay people there. So that place is really on the up and up as far as social
nice.
concepts go. And
Yeah.
it's very cool to be associated with the Roman Catholic Church when your president says it's okay to assassinate people who are accused of being homosexual. Very cool in the year 2021 to murder gay people without any responsibility or things like that. So very cool.
Yeah, that's
Keep going, Philippines. You should
Fucking-
elect a boxer as your president because you guys are doing a really good job.
Jesus Christ, as I always say.
Oh, yeah. What's the legal age to have sex over there? I can't remember it. Definitely
God knows what.
way too young.
Fucked up. But
God, people are backwards.
back to some facts. There are between, some say, 15 exorcists in the United States,
Which seems like a low number
Qualified,
for how
certified.
many. Yeah.
but some people say 70 to 100.
Gotcha.
Weird that the numbers are that fucking off, but
Yeah.
But still, I was thinking if they just said 100 or under, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, it seems like it's rarefied here where like not anyone can become an exorcist, and you have to kind of, like you said, you have to get certified. You have to dedicate your life to understand the ritual of it. I mean, there is a whole. I had it like up the ritual. It's a very long series of prayers and things you have to do. A lot of it's in Latin, and there's certain things. Excuse me. Like motions you have to do. It's all a big process. It's like memorizing a whole play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like a Broadway play you're doing to yourself to get
Order
those
of
demons
operations
out.
matters. Can't start at the end.
Yeah. You can't just do it. It's not an improv show. You got to know what you're going into there. And also, it's got to be hard to keep all that together while there's a 20-year-old girl writhing and screaming about how your mother sucks cocks in hell, which will take us right into our next segment, which is
Great quote.
movies. TV shows and books too, but mostly movies to us, about exorcism, because much of us got into the idea of it that way. And I know for me, I think for you too, when I first saw movies about this, it was the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life, and almost does still remain to be.
Yeah, so when's your first time seeing some fucked up shit? Like, what was it? When was it? Where were you?
Yeah, well, the first time I had heard about it was probably for people talking about the movie The Exorcist. But I was much too scared to watch scary movies, and I didn't like watching them. I had it was more like a punishment when people would watch them. I'd be like, this is going to be like someone, hurting me. It's not enjoyable. I'm just trying to get through it. But I was at a campground, Normandy Farms, I think it's in Foxborough, Massachusetts, and it was on Halloween time, and they would do trick-or-treating in the campground. You could dress up and walk around all the campsites, and they would pass it out. But people had these great displays of, like they'd have the big skeletons and stuff like that. I was scared of all of it. You could have a picture of a ghost, I would pee my pants. I was so scared.
Understand.
And someone had this amazing display of a bunch of different horror movies together, and one of them was lit up, and it was a bed with a dummy in it with a sheet over it, and it had a green witch's face on it, and it had like a wig, like it was supposed to be like Reagan being possessed in the movie The Exorcist, and its head was spinning around as it played the music from the movie.
Creepy.
And I ran all the way back to the campsite crying. And I was fucking terrified. And that was probably 4 years before I ever saw the movie, and that set me up for being like, well, that idea is the scariest thing ever. And then when I did see the movie, The Exorcist...
I think I went to camp with that person.
Did you? When I did see the movie The Exorcist, I was like, this is the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
And I almost didn't want to finish it because I was so scared. It was terrifying. And it still is jarring even today. From the 70s, it'll still get you today, which I can't imagine what people thought at the time when they saw it, how much just shocked society to be a movie like that. That terrifying. People were like, you shouldn't even be allowed to see it. It's too scary.
Damien!
Amen.
God, defender of the human race! Oh, look down in pity!
You killed your
on this
mother!
your servant!
You left her alone to
Reagan
die!
to his
Shut
death.
up! I'll never forgive you!
Repent, O Lord,
Shut up!
Endeavor's power.
Bastard! Oh!
I command you, by the judge of the living and the dead!
Yeah, I think it's same thing. Even to this day, I'll watch any horror movie, any scary movie ever. I don't like torture porn because I'm not 14.
Yeah, that's not true.
That's just
scariness.
a game. You're
Just
like, oh
watching
my god,
gore.
let's watch those arms get cut
that's-
off with a acetylene torch. Okay,
That's not
okay,
nearly as
great.
scary as the true fear.
We're spiritual
and
beings.
horror.
You watch
Yeah.
spiritually based horror movies.
Can't escape.
It's always scary, no matter what you believe in. Scary stuff. So, yeah, I hear you on that. My first time with all that was definitely when my older cousins dragged me to a movie theater in Portsmouth to go see Exorcist: The Beginnings. That one.
All right, so that was kind of like
2001.
not really a remake, kind of like a reboot of The Exorcist, being like, we're gonna make it again.
So
but
a
a
little
prequel.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it's the story of the priest, or the exorcist in the movie that's based in Washington D.C. And it's actually a phenomenal movie. It's not quite as scary as the other one. To me, it was, but it starts off with, I think they're in North Africa or they're somewhere like that in the desert, and it's why that church is so haunted.
Yeah, I think that's worth bringing up. Just a quick aside:
Yeah.
that why it happens in North Africa is actually happens in the second Exorcist movie.
Yeah.
They go there to the site.
Yeah.
It's a temple to the god Pazuzu, which is that other Mesopotamian god I talked about earlier.
It's crazy,
Which
too.
is actually considered a demon in the Catholic faith. Pazuzu is this being with the head of a lion and the wings, the double wings, and all that. And that is the spirit or the demon that possesses Reagan the Exorcist. So that's why they go to North Africa in that movie and in the sequel to show you this is the temple of this demon that's actually taken over this poor little girl.
If anybody wants a good idea to really scare people, Disneyland has Star Wars and Harry Potter now and all those other things.
Yeah.
Make that temple where you have to, it's buried by sand, and then they crawl in a hatch and they get down there and there's just upside down crosses. It looks like a church with just everything's upside down. And it's really dark and drippy and crazy.
I have seen that. I totally forgot. That scene just brought me right there.
Yeah, you go there and they're crawling
Fucking
down. They
terrifying.
see that first, and they're like, "What is this about?"
hell
But
is
that's
this?
after. I think they get there after they go through this almost battle with with beings who are it's like it's a World War II battle, and it's like the British troops and they're shooting at all these people, probably the Germans coming across, but they're so big.
North African.
Yeah, it's probably that, but they're clearly possessed. Like it's a weird scene. Then everyone wakes up in the morning and they find this temple. It's like so strange. The bugs of this, that, and like as a 9 or 10-year-old, I could barely watch. I was mortified. I mean, I probably haven't been that scared since. I was like, this is freaking crazy, totally crazy. So that was my first time seeing that stuff, and then since then I do. I've seen Emily Rose, but I typically just still avoid those movies. I don't really like. They're not fun. Like it's like.
I still enjoy watching. I enjoy watching the ones we talked about because those ones really got me at the time. They don't get me as much now. Like I said, as I get older, it takes a lot more to scare me in horror movies.
Totally
when I was a kid, I could watch any scary movie, and I'd be like, "This is this." Like when I saw The Ring, which I still think is a good movie.
I've seen it once.
It's still.
It took one time for me to.
It's not as scary as when I was a kid, but it was the most horrifying thing of all time. I think if I watched it for the first time now, I wouldn't be as scared as I was at the time. So it's a little bit more difficult. But when I watched The Exorcism of Emily Rose, it was probably 3-4 years after seeing The Exorcist. So I was probably 13 years old. Yeah. So I would be 13. And I was still completely engrossed in the idea, like, God is watching me, the devil's watching over me, I gotta be a good boy and all that stuff. And after I saw that movie and seeing that it was based on a true story, I didn't realize it was in the 1970s in Germany. I thought it was like in Iowa last week. Still scary, but yeah, it scared the ever-loving shit out of me. The movie's very good at doing that, even though it's half a courtroom drama. But the scenes of the priest seeing the devil and her doing the genuflecting, and the whole scene of her in the barn, and she goes,
We are the ones who dwell within. Honey, who shush your head, but talk from Queen Habitabbit in the road. And I taste a paraffin and you die. And I am Lucifer, the devil in the flesh.
and I was like, oh my God, scared the shit out of me.
Yep.
I was terrified because part of that movie, people wake up at the witching hour, which is 3:30 in the morning.
No, that's the movie that did that for me. I still sometimes go, I don't want to wake up around that
When
time.
you wake up at that time, and so not only did that movie scare the shit out of me, I had a hard time sleeping. I woke up that night at 3:30 in the morning, terrified
Awful.
to my guts,
Yep.
sweating, and I went and I grabbed my statue of Saint Michael that I had, and I held it to my chest, and I just sat there probably for an hour, wide awake, because I was like, I don't want the devil to take over my body and possess me.
Yeah.
And I don't think that any movie since and before then, even there's been scarier
Has
movies,
made you do that.
but it has never made me act in the real world as if I was threatened directly by the movie that day.
Yep.
And that got me for like at least a year afterwards. But if I woke up at 3:30, I'd be like, oh shit.
Yeah, you know why it's 3:30,
Calm
right?
down. I don't.
Well, it's like 3:33 is like what it is, because it's
It's
half
supposed
of
to be
666, and then also Jesus was 33 when he died.
Yeah.
And
Numerology.
Yeah. The whole 33 thing is what that's all about.
Gotcha.
The witching hour. Yeah, they took a sacred number, and made it their time.
Weird ass shit.
Weird stuff.
But yeah, there's other possession movies. Like there's a movie, The Possession. There's The Rites, which Anthony Hopkins plays.
Yeah, I never saw one,
Exorcist.
but yep.
Hereditary, kind of a newer movie of being possessed.
Yeah, I saw
She
that
gets
one. Didn't
possessed
bother
by
me as
that one.
much.
Yeah.
Annabelle
think
the
it's-
doll.
Yeah, Annabelle the Doll is
Wasn't
another one.
that scary.
The Conjuring is another
Conjuring,
possession
I
movie.
haven't seen that. I just feel like it's too scary.
That one's not scary at all to me. The
Okay,
Conjuring
yeah.
series is kind of fucking lame, and Annabelle doesn't scare me that too much either. Hereditary is a little bit more scary because it's just jarring more than it is scary. Like I'm not scared of the fact that there's gonna be demons, more that there's like just jarring moments. The way they film it, just like freaking out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not as scared of the mom being possessed by a demon as much as I am when the scene when spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. When the kid comes home and has to deliver very bad news to his mother, the way that she reacts is a way that people react in real life to awful tragedies. And the way that she screams, it really did fuck me up in the way that you can show me 100 ghosts and demons. It won't scare me in the way to hear a mother react to the news of her children being gravely harmed. I mean, it's just otherworldly. But yeah, there's a lot of movies about possession, and they're some of the most popular horror films of all time. I mean, the Conjuring series alone is the most lucrative horror film series of all time, just because people love watching people get possessed by ghosts and demons and shit.
Yeah.
It's popular.
It
I mean,
is.
as much as it is popular to have people like killers with hatchets and axes and pickaxes like My Bloody Valentine. It's awesome.
Great
it's
movie,
scary,
yeah.
but people aren't as scared of that as they are of the demons.
It's known,
seeping into your body. Yeah, it's unseen.
ununderstood, Yeah,
you have no power to defend yourself.
Yeah, nothing you can do.
All right, so it's inherently scary.
And the last one, interestingly enough, we'll post some footage of me driving by the filming location. So, February 2020. They were just starting to film a movie in Sudbury, Massachusetts at the Martha Mary Chapel.
Martha Mary Chapel.
We're all trying to figure out what movie this is. COVID's in the making.
Right,
it's all going down.
It's already ravaging through the Wuhan province of China, and we are not realizing how severe it's going to be.
We've got a couple thousand cases in the U.S. at this point. And by the Wayside Inn, all of a sudden, I see this really crazy tree in the middle of a field. Big field, crazy tree, dead tree that looks very scary. And I was like, I've never seen that tree before.
And you've been by that place probably 100 times. And you're like, I've
30
never
years,
seen
almost
this.
30 years been driving that place. I'm like, I've never seen this tree. It's so weird.
Crazy.
And then I started to see a film crew there, and I was like, oh, they're filming a movie. I'm like, that's a cool thing. Then you find out the movie is called The Unholy that they're filming.
The Unholy.
The Unholy. And then right after they started filming a couple of scenes, shut down completely because of COVID. Started refilming it later that year. And the movie, the premise is interesting. It's that it's all Martha Mary Chapel, all fucking Sudbury shit in Massachusetts. And the whole film is that everybody for the course of history has been praying to Mary.
Yeah.
But Mary is actually the devil.
Oh,
so everybody. So
what a twist!
For 2,000 years, everybody's been praying to the wrong spiritual being.
I bet she's not even a virgin.
Yeah, it's a really thing. I haven't seen it, but I've got.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it's worth seeing.
Well, I'll watch it just to see the tree and all that cool stuff, if nothing else, and maybe it'll even be
what
good.
you're doing later? Maybe we could
pop it on the fucking old tube.
See what's that? Watch the one over.
Sure.
Getting the mood.
Getting the Halloween spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. So with that, any other notes on possession before we go into final thoughts?
No, nothing besides it needs to. This is a topic that needs to be respected. We know that, and it's unexplained. I mean, there are some we didn't explain what might be the result, why these young ladies.
Yeah, why don't we give some possible explanations?
There's some good
before we go into final thoughts.
There's some good explanations besides just being taken over by the devil.
Yeah. Which obviously is a possibility. Understand the spirit world and demons. If you believe and understand things like that, it's always a definite possibility. Especially when you see all these weird results that you would not see in normal everyday life. That would be diagnoses. I mean, one of the reoccurring things in all these stories is that these people are going to the doctors multiple times, over and over and over again. They're never diagnosed. Which a lot of times you'd think they can figure it out pretty easily, but it's just all this weird circumstances unexplained. But at the same time, there's a lot of odd things that can go on with people's minds and cause them to act and believe things that aren't actually happening. And their families can believe that as well.
Yeah, and they obviously they feel things, they act out things, they do things.
They're not making the shit up.
They
really are seeing and feeling things.
Physiological responses to something, and a lot of it, as you've seen, they tend to fall down the same path of malnourishment, stop eating, overly obsessing over things, seeing things, self-harm, can't sleep, substance abuse, traumatic experiences. All these things add to... a lot of times, again, malnourishment's a big thing. So, one guy thinks that, deficiencies in thiamine, tryptophan, niacin, calcium, and vitamin D, as a whole of just if you just eat white bread for your whole life, and once a week, you can get some serious issues from just not being healthy,
malnourished.
Yeah, being sick all the
time.
Especially
if you just had a big turkey sandwich and a glass of milk, you'd be able to get the tryptophan and the vitamin D and the calcium you need there. But
that does also, that actually does bring it all up. Yeah, but
that's
and women seem to be more often than men possessed, and they have their own.
That's right. They're more susceptible to that particular phenomenon than men. Of course, like we said, there's some cases of people getting possessed that are male, but even those cases seem to be young children, not adult men.
Yeah, exactly. So Yeah, and these can be for women. All this gets exacerbated by pregnancy and lactation and hormonal imbalances from.
Yeah, your mind is getting in a place that it's not used to, and a lot of changes are happening in your body.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
I mean, what's more of a possession than literally being host to a life form that is not yourself, that has needs and demands of you, and it changes the way you act and perceive yourself in the world, and it's launching you into a major life change, and you're going to become emotional and scared, and
you stop eating after that.
Yeah, I mean, there's the real possession that happens all the time where you actually, it's a beautiful thing where you're having a baby, where this thing is inside of you and it demands things of you and it changes your entire life, and it can even kill you.
Yeah, and if it's traumatic the whole time, I mean, you can just see how this can snowball.
Yes.
Into some really bad moments and years and times and days and.
Absolutely. And the mind is a very powerful thing, even more powerful than we understand. For example, the placebo effect is so powerful that even modern drug companies struggle to fight against it in their trials. If they can't prove that their drug is more powerful than a placebo, then they can't bring it to market. And they still struggle sometimes because when people are suggested that these things are going to work for them, the mind is so powerful that sometimes it can help you to the degree that it's hard to disprove whether someone feels better or worse based on that.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times people think that the exorcisms, whether or not there's things like malnourishment, hormone imbalances, or just mental health problems to the point of psychosis, psychotic breaks, and schizophrenia, these exorcisms, if you truly believe and you are mentally unstable to the fact that you think there's a demon inside you and you believe that someone can put holy water on you and pray for you and you're going to be okay, your mind is so powerful, you can actually become better after you're done.
Totally.
Even though this might have not worked in the spiritual way you wanted it to, you can actually become better. And this could be one example of how exorcisms, even though they are dangerous to a lot of people because they're strenuous and they're not, usually there's not an EMT on the site. It'd be nicer if we had someone, medical professional there maybe. But they do actually help people. And that could, a possible explanation could be that this placebo effect is happening where you do think there's demons, you are hallucinating, you're delusional, you have religious delusions, but if a religious delusion can help you solve that, you can actually be better off afterwards. So it's kind of like you're better off for it, even though it's not real.
It's crazy. And especially influence of others, like your grandmother tells you, oh, you be careful of these things, and you're like, oh shit. And
your parents
you really believe
are
that?
currently pumping this idea into you all the time.
Yeah, and you
grew up
believe that,
studying
this
it,
is how
you're
it is.
surrounded
Like,
by it.
Yeah, totally. And then like my last thing to say is that like I think I've talked about the power of the subconscious mind before, but like I'm a vivid dreamer. I remember my dreams. I interact with my dreams on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And the amount of times where I'm in my dream and I'm reading something on paper in Old English that I'm in my dream going, I know I'm dreaming. I'm like, how does my brain produce this document in Old English that reads perfectly? It's so strange. I'm like, somehow my brain knows this.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the way it's supposed to be. It's not like it's like gibberish. I mean, I'm reading it. I gotta wake up and write it down sometime because I'm like, I wake up, I'm like, wow, that was amazing. I can't, and it's like, it made sense.
Forget
it's about a topic that is nothing I'm interested in.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's actually the most boring thing ever. It's like what you read in like the back of a newspaper in 1600. Like, I'm like, wow, it's in there.
Right.
It's all there. So there's a lot of things. So that could be a possible cause. There's, there's a lot to this.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It is.
But I'm just, personally, the being scared of this these days. As a kid I was, but now I'm like, and I feel pretty bulletproof.
Yeah, I no longer feel I'm going to be possessed by demons. I feel like there's a lot of other things to be scared of other than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's an interesting concept. And as we teased about earlier, I'm sure that if these cases do happen sparingly, they're probably unrecorded, but mostly every single case, overwhelmingly, to anyone who's claimed possession, and certainly every exorcism, has been taken place by someone who's been possessed that is highly religious. They're surrounded by religion. They are indoctrinated into this idea of demons and spirits, and so no one's ever said, I grew up in an igloo and I don't even believe in spirits, and I'm on the planet Mars. I don't even know what spirits are, but for some reason my name's Lucifer and I think that Mother Mary should rot in hell. And no one's ever said that because you have to be surrounded by these ideas in order to spew them out and understand them. Whether or not the demons are truly inside you, there's always the case you could say, well, they're more susceptible because the demons want to take people who have pure hearts that are people of God. It's like a bigger prize to take someone who is truly a believer. Like to make a priest fall is more valuable than taking an atheist and making them, they're already, sinners anyway. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
There's a case to be made for that. But in my opinion, it's more likely that you would never think you're possessed with a demon if you didn't already believe in demons so deeply that if you did feel weird, you think it's a demon inside you.
Right. It's a great point.
So I think we should just get the final thoughts of that.
Thoughts are wrapped up pretty much what you just said. Is that
what do you think?
Yeah, what I think there's definitely some truth to this that I don't understand, I can't explain, scares me a little bit, but for the most part there is a pattern. There is definitely a pattern here. When there is a credible body, and some people can argue that, but a lot of research, a lot goes into this that do take this seriously. I respect that. Not fucking with that. That's all I gotta say. And I'm not gonna dive into this or like make fun of it or whatever it is. We're just trying to report on the facts here. This stuff happened. This is how it happened. This could be why it happened, but I'm gonna leave it alone.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'll leave it up a little bit because of these strange circumstances. Things like being able to guess things about people's lives that you never met before, speaking in languages that you never said. Yeah. These kind of superhuman things that you wouldn't expect out of like a 90-pound girl to be able to throw human men around. But at the same time, I feel like a broken record here, as I always do. People can do amazing things with their mind and with their bodies that you don't understand. People can be 80-pound meth smokers, and it takes 9 cops to take them down. Methamphetamines don't add muscle mass to your body. It changes your mind in a way that your body reacts in a way that's unnatural.
Fight or flight adrenaline.
Yeah, fight or flight adrenaline, things like that. I mean, methamphetamines, for example, like I said, they don't make you stronger. They make you ignore pain, and it pushes your body to limits that it never would naturally because it's dangerous and detrimental by the way you're born. So for the most part, I think that all of these circumstances, notwithstanding the strange parts, we always leave a little, I know that you more than I leave a little room for unexplained. I think there's rarely any room for it. But for the most part, there's people who have trauma, severe mental illness, and they're surrounded by this idea. So people can have this exact same problem as people who are quote unquote possessed, but they are taken to psychiatric hospitals for schizophrenia and psychosis, and they say, well, I see this, I see that. That's why there's so many people who believe they're Jesus or Napoleon, or they believe that there's demons in their blood, because they know who Jesus is. They know who Napoleon is, and they believe in demons. No one ever comes up. He didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he knew who he was. But it's more of the fact that these people are exuding these symptoms because of their mental state, and a lot of these things are complicated. We don't understand the human brain, and even though we can't diagnose every person on a case-by-case basis, like Annalise Michel went to multiple doctors that couldn't diagnose her, but it's not always so black and white. But just because it's not so black and white, like I said, just because you see a light in the sky doesn't mean if it's not a plane, it's an alien ship. It could be many other things, and I think that for the most part, the human brain's an amazing thing. It can make amazing things happen, and I believe that all these people are seeing demons, are feeling the possession, and probably don't have control of their own body in a lot of cases. But I don't believe it's because Lucifer has grasped them from the depths of hell. I believe it's because their mind is such a powerful tool. It can make them believe that. And the human mind is a gift and a curse. We're so intelligent, we can imagine and understand these things, and we can create anything. But that power can be twisted into making us see, believe, and understand things that aren't happening to us. And it's the most amazing thing in the world, the human brain, but it can turn on itself.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So
totally. No, Joe. Yeah. It's at the DJ BP, Dylan Joe, Basement Podcast, episode 39. God bless. And we will see you guys next week, hopefully for a real fucking ass beater.
Oh, it's going to be a big time ass beater. It's another episode 40, which means we got another countdown for you guys. We might have a special guest on like we have for a lot of countdowns. We'll see.
It's possible. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
You better fucking hear this, Dom. We're counting on you.
Happy Halloween, folks. Thanks for tuning in for our first Halloween episode. We have 3 more for you before All Souls Day, All Hallows Eve. And we can't wait to spook you a couple more times until you get spooked into the next dimension. And till then, stay safe. Keep your rosary close. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Of course, something's come over him. And he
women with no shirts on.
And he
Roland.
Their shirts aren't even on in the pictures. What's happened?
What has happened to him?
They're topless.
My baby.
My baby Roly. My little roly poly oly.
As they always said.
They always say
roly poly oly's looking at. I'm gonna bring his uncle in here, and because we know he knows what's going on with this, and see how we can help him. Because he needs to be saved.
We'll have Uncle Ronnie show you how it works there, buddy.
Yeah. Such like scratching noises coming from his mattress.
Ooh. Interesting. Objects moving around the house.
Furniture moving on their own.
The bed keeps creaking on its own over and over again.
Over and over again. There's only the holes showing up in it.
What the hell? Socks are disappearing left and right.
Socks are disappearing left and right.
One occasion she stayed under her dinner table for 2 days barking like a dog, and Peter still stayed with her trying to keep her okay. I mean, come on, at that point you gotta be crazy.
She has to be doing something to him he likes.
Shows you things that you cannot learn in your
through ayahuasca or through something else.
Yeah, we gotta do drugs. But after that, you don't eat it all, and you wander off in the forest, and then the spirits come into you.
But we're not making fun of that. We are.
No, it's cool.
We are very pro ayahuasca podcast. We believe in that.
Of course, yeah. I mean, whatever gets you there. And that's for everything. However you can get.
It's a really good Dylan Joe podcast. Whatever gets you there.
Adolf Hitler is one of them.
Interesting guy to have in there.
Huh. Yeah, that does make the story a little strange.
You don't want him.
They didn't put that in the movie. Because it's kind of fucking weird.
Just things that he's known since knowing Louisa. He told our people here really disturb your reality. So, just more witness accounts from her friend Girk. Oh, sorry, Wyona Girk. Just said the same.
Winona. I bet her name's
Winona.
Winona Gerke.
Gerke.
It's like the German pronunciation. Gerke.
Gerke. Yep.
Poor shit.
Yeah. And she just saw things like her facial expression. It didn't seem like her. Creeped her out so bad. Feeling for her own safety. Girk wrestled her to the ground and eventually managed to calm her down. And then she slept on the couch. But we don't, at this point, that's
how the story is.
That's the story. Yeah,
it's on the couch.
Her friend got a wrestling match.
They weren't going to sleep together that night.
She slept on the couch and she
was in the doghouse.
Wyona her bed. I mean, she gave Elisa her bed.
That's it.
And then slowly, like a viper swing to the sounds of a snake's charmer, Pungi.
What?
That's what it says. Oh, sorry. That's not what she said. She moves her head side to side after she speaks like a snake charmer's, I guess, the way he's doing the flute thing.
I'm guessing it's this kind of deal, like da-na-na-na-na.
Yep. And then, then after she stops doing the pungi, she says, her demon says, God can't save her. Do you understand that? She's mine.
Pater noster qui es exilis, sanctificute nomen San, adveneat regum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in caleo et in terra, panem nostrum et ductidiadem nobis sahivet et venite nobis debitas nostra, venais sicut et nos menas debitores oelac et duc menos auns at Daif Titiano de Uber Daenef Labera Nasmon Red Duke Fitness Silis Rixes Eich Bretson Red